Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We've got a few more people filing in. So welcome and thank you for joining us for another of our In Conversation webinars, an ongoing series of talks that are a core part of our mission at Art Logic to support the art community with valuable insights and meaningful conversations. My name is Luke Strong-Doyle and I'm a senior consultant here at Art Logic, and I'll be your host for today's session, which I'm very excited about. Today, we're diving into the Benelux region, its art scene, changes in collector dynamics, operational complexities, and hurdles that dealers are facing in the region. But we're also going to be exploring the exciting upcoming programming and events to look forward to as well. So I'm very pleased to be joined by our guests today. So first up, we have Sebastian Bronson, Senior Director and Partner at Grimm Gallery, based in Amsterdam, Brussels, and New York. Sebastian has deep expertise in the contemporary art market and its relationship to the global scene. He works closely with artists including Cherba Beekman, Caroline Walker, and Angela Heisch, whose current show is in their Amsterdam gallery until Saturday, 10th of May. Next up, we have Martina Halsama, Director of Amsterdam Art Week, helping shape the city's cultural landscape through dynamic programming and community engagement. She brings a valuable perspective on how local scenes, in Amsterdam, are evolving within the global art world. And we also have Damien Batel-Rogier, who's joining us from Brussels, where he's the founder and director of Super Dakota, a gallery which he started back in 2013. Damien has a background in art history, artist management, and over a decade in the music industry. He brings a cross-disciplinary approach to supporting contemporary artists and building meaningful networks across the art world. The gallery's current show is entitled A Season in Hell by the artist Stevie Dix, which is on through to Saturday, 31st of May. So thank you and welcome to you all. Thank you for joining. So to kick us off, I have a question for all our guests. What are the most kind of exciting shifts you're observing in the art scene in this region right now, and how are you seeing local galleries and collectors respond? Perhaps Martina, you can kick us off.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I think here in Amsterdam, what you can see is that there is a new generation of younger art professionals joining into the art scene. And I think there's much more collaboration between different types of institutions, but also between the different galleries. So already more established galleries and the younger galleries are working together more closely. And of course, also what we try to do is make sure that all these collaborations are being fostered within one ecosystem in the city. And I think that's also how collectors also respond to that, because they like to see how this is being nurtured.
Nice. And Sebastian, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I think the scene in Amsterdam is definitely evolving. It's weird it's interesting that we're here now together as the Benelux, and already within this region there's great differences. And the scene in Amsterdam is very passionate, but it's also very local and very small traditionally. There's great galleries, but in terms of collectors and art advisors, and it's limiting in some sense. It's not as professional as, for instance, London or New York. Those are much larger scenes. But what Martina is saying correctly is that there's definitely something happening where there's a larger group of younger collectors stepping up, and they're very involved and very much. Well, we're going to enter the Amsterdam Art Week, and you'll be astonished to see so many young people that turn up at all the events, at all the galleries, and especially for Amsterdam, this is quite a shift.
Absolutely.
And Damien as well. Anything to add from the kind of Brussels standpoint as well?
No, I think like it's seeing quite a lot of similarities with Amsterdam as well. There is a big input and influx of new spaces, new professional, as Martina was saying, and also younger collectors. I think like we're in a moment of a shift, right? And we're seeing it on many different levels, and that has a clear impact also and a clear application in the art market. I think there's a lot of new endeavors and new spaces that are created that might be challenging the traditional model of or the economic model that we've seen in the in the history of the art market. And I find it quite exciting, because I feel like it's been set in stone like for so long that maybe having new blood and people bringing new energy and new ideas, I think it's beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the time that I was spending when I was living in Amsterdam as well, it felt there was very much the old guard, and now it's kind of shifting in. It's interesting to hear that that's happening in Brussels as well. I guess, Sebastian, a question for you. Are you noticing any differences in the habits or expectations of collectors in the region, and like how does that kind of shape what you show and sell?
Well, we're in a very interesting moment of time. I think each moment is always interesting, but now particularly there's so much going on in the world. And of course, the art world is not unaffected. I do see that, where the past 5 years, a lot of collectors were rushed into decision making. Now things are slowing down a little bit, which doesn't really affect Amsterdam as much. I think Amsterdam, like I said earlier, it's much more passion driven, and it's not as a rushed art scene. Collectors never really had to rush as much, but on a larger scale. So we also operate in London and New York. I do see things changing, and yeah, I think it's good in a way that we can really take time to make the decisions in best interest of the artists that we represent. For us, having a space in Amsterdam, or we originated in Amsterdam, it's always been a very natural home base because it's such a neutral place. We can bring artists from all over the world here without crossing anyone's territory. We can easily collaborate with other galleries, and maybe those kind of places become more valuable in the coming time. But it's always been a good sort of home base for us. But at the same time, it's also limiting. You don't have the stage and the exposure that we have in New York or London, for example.
So it kind of feels that it's working to your advantage in some respects, and then in other aspects, perhaps not so much. Okay. And Damien, would it feel similar to yourself, or like, do you feel that you find yourself, I guess, cultivating a more like local audience versus an international visibility, or what's your approach there, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to only base your business on local, and especially with our program being so international. And I think like the dynamic of talking about going back to sort of very secular market compared to a global economy, it's something that we need to adjust, right? And it's something that is quite recent. Obviously, like what's happening in the United States and in other parts of the planet are dictating the behavior consumer, the consumer of behavior, sorry, the behavior of consumers. Anyway, so obviously that has an impact, and we are making conscious decision of doing more local projects and nurturing also European relationship. I wouldn't say though that we only focusing on Belgium, and we're putting in, like all our eggs in the basket of Belgium. For example, we did not participate at our Brussels this year. I believe in Europe, as a whole, and I think like we are looking at a bigger sort of spectrum, but because the Benelux, I think, has an amazing reputation when it comes to collecting. Of course, it's a place that we nurture like clients in, that we're trying to develop, and we're thinking of strategies to do so. But also like not only on the collector side, but also artist side, we are looking more into developing local talent. Like looking at things that might not have been what the trend before, on the global market.
And I guess then, so with that, there has to be some roles to be played with those events that are going to help bring things together as well. So I guess the question to you, Martina, is like, how do you view the role of like local gallery weekends in comparison to those kind of larger regional or international events?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference, of course, if you have an art week or a gallery weekend or versus an art fair. And I think an art weekend or art week or gallery weekend definitely invites people to explore the city. And I think for a city like Amsterdam, that's of course wonderful because even though we are a capital city, we're still one on a very small scale. People always enjoy to come here to stroll around the canals. And then you can find very interesting spots like galleries, but also project spaces or residencies hidden away in a very specific corner. So I think it's a perfect way to really explore the city and also experience the local art scene. Much more than, of course, than when you go to an art fair. You also feel the identity of the different art locations within the city. Then on the other hand, you do need to take more effort as a visitor to visit different locations because of course it's not all situated in one hall where people you can just stroll around the different booths and then you're out. So of course it's a completely different experience, but I like it much more. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but it's of course a perfect way to explore a different city and really see what's happening. Most times also the artists are present, so you have the opportunity to go into a conversation with them. Artist talks are of course hosted, and since you are not in one central location with one stage where different conversations are happening, it happens all over the city, so you can really pick and choose the different events you want to visit. So you have the opportunity to experience more different artists and go into conversation with them. So it's a completely different experience.
I'd agree with that in terms of it seems that there's perhaps more opportunity to lower the barrier of entry for people that are
Absolutely.
new to
Yeah.
experiencing the art world. Obviously, when you've got your fairs, you have to really be like aware of where you need to go, you know, where the fair's located, get the tickets and things like this. But obviously, with these kind of these events, I think it can be more welcoming to those that perhaps haven't really dipped their toe into the art world before. So,
Absolutely.
you know, they've
Yeah,
definitely
we
got that.
definitely try to do that.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And to sort of circle back to your question before about the local and the international, I think the Amsterdam Art Week is quite a good example where it can really serve both because, you know, as Martina is just putting it, it's a great promotion for Amsterdam, and you know, we there's a lot to offer for international visitors. Also because I think a lot of the galleries that are here have very strong programs. They have the luxury of all these international artists that come to Amsterdam for the art academies that are here, the postgraduate academies, the ateliers, the Rijksacademie, Sandberg. There's a lot to offer. But then for some reason, these galleries that are in Amsterdam, they don't reach the international audience as easily as, for instance, a lot of the galleries in London or New York will. So I think there's a lot to discover for international visitors. But I know that for the past years, the Amsterdam Art Week was also forced to really look at itself and also redefine whether we needed to. Also on the board of Amsterdam Art Week, maybe I should specify that. But whether we needed to invest maybe more also in the local audience, because that's often overlooked how important it is also to you know focus on the people that are here that you know don't have to fly in from all over the world. I think there's much more to gain, and especially in Amsterdam, it's very interesting that we are all growing up with arts around us. There's great museums. It's educated pretty well at school, but then there's this huge disconnect with the contemporary art scene. I've been working with the gallery for 14 years, and I still have to explain to my best friends what it exactly is that I'm doing. You know, that it's not something that people really have a broad understanding of. So we also, with these events like the Amsterdam Art Week, we really have to invest in, blatantly saying, educating the local audience and taking them by the hand, showing them what the galleries have to offer.
Yeah. I mean, try working in art tech. Trying to explain that to people as well is always a tricky one. So do you feel that it's kind of similar for yourself then, Damien? Do you feel that there's that kind of you're going through that similar shift in terms of that educational aspect of things as well?
Yeah, I completely. I mean, I applaud, Martina and Sebastian for the vision that they bring to the Gallery Week in Amsterdam, because I think this project, we've been part of this Gallery Weekend here in Brussels. Like the organizer usually they put a big emphasis on foreign collectors, on foreign curators, on visitors that are not local. And it might have been great, 10 or 15 years ago when there were less art fairs, when there were less projects, or less events in the calendar. But today there's so many solicitation every month for collectors to go to, that in the end I feel that we completely forgot that a Gary weekend, or like, whatever you want to call it, I think is very beneficial for nurturing new collectors, for bringing people that might not be educated or aware that, you can go to galleries, it's free. I myself, when I
Mm.
was younger, like I didn't really know that. And I learned it. And my first experience were horrible. Like a lot of people, you go to these places and you don't see people, like no one talks to you. And I feel that maybe creating an openness and having this sort of event to bring people and having make it fun and make it educational, I think is a big priority. And I think instead of focusing on all these international, like trying to sell galleries that, oh, we're going to bring you these collectors, these people, and all that, you actually can't really, because they not necessarily want to come to the city just, for a gallery weekend.
Mm.
I think it's way smarter to try and bring people together, like create like a stronger network between the galleries, the curators, the collectors, and try to nurture new people to engage in the art scene.
So would you say then that kind of that perhaps either a shift you're seeing or a shift that you want to see, is that influencing how you work with artists? So how you perhaps curate your program, or are you fairly like split between? And also, do you feel that it has the potential to shape
Mm.
like residencies and more kind of institutional involvement there as well?
But for me,
Yeah, please. Why not? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, obviously, of course. Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to, I mean, for us, we are the weird stage, right? We're just like, we just crossed the 10 years mark. And so we're not young anymore. We've been basically told by every single art fair in the world that we're not young anymore. So, I think every gallery's go through that phase where you have to adapt, right? Like obviously your overheads are getting higher, you're having more staff, your shows, and with inflation, everything costs more. So it's harder for us to do shows of young artists, and they don't like, it's not necessarily viable. But we still like a gallery that pride itself to be a place of discovery. So we just like at the moment it's with our team, it's full of discussion and strategies about, okay, so how do we create that shift? Because we want to keep being discovery, but we also want to make sure that we, take the next step. So that goes, you have to be a bit smarter, I think, with the program, and less casual about, less free about, oh yeah, we love that. I think we become a bit more, we take a bit more time. We just like do a bit more research, of course, and try to find that balance that we find exciting for our audience, the collectors, and the people that love the gallery.
And is that similar to yourself, Sebastian, as well?
Yeah, I think, I mean, what you're just saying, it's again, it's also advocating for looking again at the local scene. And if you just look at the Benelux region, our per person, the GDPs are extremely high. It was one of the wealthiest regions in the world. And we do pay high taxes, but in general, there's quite a lot of wealth, and people, have a good living standard. So it's sometimes strange to me that there's not as big of an art scene here. So again, I really believe that we can create more out of it.
Mm.
And traditionally we would always focus on these huge art fairs that we attend, and that are great to meet new people, but they're also extremely costly. So at these times it's good to take a step back and look at what you're really doing, and maybe investing more in a local audience is a much better strategy for the long run. At the same time, we're a Dutch gallery that also opened up in New York and in London. And I have to say that did help us a great deal because the exposure is so much bigger. Was it a risk? Yes, for sure. It was like a huge risk. But you do see that sometimes when you take these risks, it really pays off. And if I just look at the Amsterdam scene, it's sometimes difficult for galleries to break out of it, to make their artists grow to a more international level where their price level can also grow in terms that artists can also make a successful living out of their practice. And these kind of things sometimes really amaze me that, you have these great artists living here, working here, championed by pretty good galleries, but still, they're struggling. And yeah, for us, the international move did help. So on the one hand, I believe in the local, but at the same time, having international exposure is also important. So I think we just have to think smartly about how to do that.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of you going back to what you said, Sebastian, about the kind of economic impact that Benelux region has, just throwing some research out there, I think it's the land mass is 1.7% of Europe, but the amount of GDP or the amount of transactions that get through is like nearly 8 or 9% of the total European Union in terms of business done in that region, which is disproportionate. It's a huge amount. But then also kind of putting on, let's say, a more art historical cap for a minute. When you think of like inter-region, inter-city artistic collaboration, from a historical perspective, you might naturally think of Cobra, which happened between Copenhagen, Brussels, and Amsterdam. This was a more kind of organic collaboration of artists between the three cities. But conversely, the Benelux region was originally created as an economic partnership, but it doesn't seem to have had that same organic artistic collaboration. And I know in our pre-discussion, we were saying that each region has its own approach to art sales, its own like sort of bureaucracy surrounding that. But do you feel that, putting that aside, there perhaps is room for something that could allow for artists, galleries, collectives to develop? Perhaps Martina, maybe perhaps you can take that question first.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think what we discussed before, we founded a European network of art weeks and gallery weekends to make sure that we serve as a think tank together, but also since we aim for the same goals. So we all, of course, want to make art accessible for a broader audience. We want to lower the barrier, but we also still want to, even though we do have a focus also locally, it's also very important, since our market is so small, to bring in international collectors, but also curators or museum directors from abroad, but also journalists. So we also realize that since we have the same goals and organize some sort of a similar week, why not collaborate? How can we make stronger partnerships also with sponsors, since we also all have financial challenges over time. We all have a big database of interesting art lovers, art professionals, and collectors. So they would love to go to another city, because I don't think that all of them know about all the other art weeks and gallery weekends. I mean, the Berlin Art Week is, of course, very well known to most of everyone. But that Vienna has the oldest art week, probably people don't know. I'm going myself now to the Stockholm Art Week just a week before. So I think, of course, it's also interesting to see the different art scenes there. And we all felt a big need for collaboration. We also see that there is a bigger willingness to start collaborating with each other. We don't see each other anymore as competition, but we see it more as an opportunity to gain extra visibility, bigger partnerships, and a growing visibility also for new art enthusiasts from different countries. So I do see that there is a big need and willingness to collaborate more, but that's of course more than on a company level.
Yeah, and I mean, how about yourself as well? So after this conversation, any plans to reach out to Luxembourg as a whole? see what you can rustle up as well.
Well, to be honest, I think like there is a big value in the collaborative aspect that could be created like between the three countries. I think, as you said, like in other market, like economically, like it's been like defined, but not culturally. And I think there's like a lot of room for this aspect of collaboration. Like there is not a major art fair in this region. There is not like a good solid art fair in this region. And there's not like an event that is like internationally appealing for collectors for all around the world. And I think and it's a shame because there's like so many great galleries, great institutions. Obviously, Amsterdam like is way ahead of the other two countries in terms of institutions. But I think there's like room like for yeah to create a better synergy and maybe to be more appealing and compete with big events such as the main fairs or like the Berlin Gallery Weekend or like yeah, I think that it could be very beneficial and opening those doors. And I'm happy to hear that Martina is doing it with her colleague because I think, yeah, maybe there's something to be marketed here and like make it appealing to the rest of the world.
And I guess, yeah, Sebastian, anything to add from your perspective as well on that?
Yeah, I just keep thinking by myself that it's so fascinating that even though we have so much in common within the Benelux and we're already collaborating economically and 80% speaks the same language, still there are also so many differences. And I think that's more culturally. The Dutch tend to be very Calvinistic and they don't show their riches and to have someone say out loud that they're a collector is very rare. That's something that's not in our culture. Whereas you cross the border in Belgium and all of a sudden everyone is a collectioneur.
Everyone is a collector.
And they open their doors and you see these fabulous homes with beautiful collections and they're super inviting. And then I don't even have a single collector from Luxembourg, I just realized. So there are so many differences at the same time, which I think is more probably a culture thing. So yeah, I would love to, break this, maybe open up a bit more, and maybe the art weeks are a good means to that. And I also agree, like with the art fairs in the countries, they tend to struggle, and they heavily. I know that, for instance, Art Rotterdam, and I know them very well because we share the same building here. I'm actually sitting in a space where Rotterdam also has their meetings. Funny enough, it's operated from Amsterdam, just to show how small the country is. But they're really targeting the galleries in Belgium to come to Rotterdam, and it's a huge effort. It's not something that comes naturally, and I do know that a lot of the Dutch galleries will go to Art Brussels and now more recently Art Antwerp is throwing pretty good dices. But it would be so beneficial if there's a very strong if there's like one that's stronger internationally, more present. Because yeah, I think there's indeed a lot to offer.
So do you feel that there's like perhaps then logistical, because you were mentioning, we were looking at, for example, the different legislation behind, operating in each region, and weirdly they're wildly different to each other. You were saying, Damien, you've got Belgium that's on the precipice of perhaps changing some of its tax rates for art sales. Luxembourg have taken quite an interesting turn and completely lowered theirs by a huge amount as well. I'm sorry, in Holland, I know they're kind of sticking around, but it's none of it kind of links up, really. And do you feel that's kind of perhaps putting maybe galleries from Belgium, kind of putting them off from operating within Holland, for perhaps, or I don't know if
I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's like really preventing us to these ideas. I think it makes the European art market completely unfair in many ways when you have like when you operate between 5% to like 21% on the margin, like in some countries are way higher, like it just like create an imbalance. And it's also like very confusing for collectors, right? Because they always like, so what's your VAT? Like, what am I gonna get billed? I think that makes, yeah, that's like complexifying things in my opinion. But yeah, I feel for Belgium, for the case in Belgium, I'm really, touching wood that we're not going to go to a full 21% VAT because that will make us really uncompetitive. And especially when our neighbors is 5.5%,
Yeah.
and has one of the biggest market in Europe, probably the biggest market in Europe. So yeah, that's a very touchy subject.
So let's say you had some control over that. What would kind of be those ways that you would overcome those complexities? What kind of things would you want to see, perhaps, as a suggestion?
I mean, that's my political views as well. I believe that you can't build a strong Europe and a healthy Europe if you have different tax brackets throughout different countries. If you create like tax haven or tax shelters like within the European Union, obviously you're not having a healthy European Union and you're having like a distorted message and also like a distorted economy. So I always feel that it will belong to, the decision should belong to the Brussels European Union and be like able to say, okay, well, art should be taxed at this level. Because like 5.5 or 6% or 7% here, like it doesn't really make sense, to have those little differences. But in the end, for like dealers and collectors, it's a lot, like a 2 or 3% difference when you buy something at a certain level, it's not neglectable.
No, that's interesting you say that, for sure. So I guess, yeah, from that, I don't know if Martino or Sebastian, you have anything similar. If you had your say in the matter, because it seems, yeah, obviously Luxembourg reducing that down significantly. Do you feel there should be a leveling of the playing field, or do you feel it's maybe to help their art market? Perhaps, as we've already established, it's not quite as significant in some respects as Belgium and Holland.
I think it's very smart that they're doing that because it's, yeah, I think it's one of those shadow economies that it's hardly seen how much money is actually going around in it, and it could be even much more. So I think it's a smart move from Luxembourg, but I fully agree with Damien. It's also unfair to the other, and you create circumstances where I would have a Belgian collector wanting to buy a artwork from a Belgian artist through the gallery in Amsterdam, and all of a sudden they have to pay 21% tax over that sale. Whereas if they would buy directly from the artist in Belgium, it's only 5%. So these kind of things, they just don't add up. It just makes it just creates a mess, and it would be really good to, even the playing fields much more. So there's definitely much more room for improvement.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you agree, Martino, as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is it would benefit us all. I'm very happy that now, because we also were in the midst with our new government of highing up the tax for buying art. So I'm very happy that for now at least it's in the freezer, like how they call it. So it's not happening. But still, of course, it would benefit us all if we could collaborate also on that level. And make it easier also for the artists and for the collectors, of course.
Yeah, it's kind of the interesting thing is you can pretty much get from point to point within a couple of hours. It's not like you're having to cross huge swathes of land here. It's sometimes of a 45-minute train, an hour-long train. So it's not on the other side of the world at all.
When I'm doing,
I guess,
studio visits in London, it usually takes me longer to get from one end of the city to the other than it takes me to cross my entire country here. So it's
Don't get me started, Sebastian, please. But I guess, so what's coming up? So turning to you, Damien, what's kind of coming up next for you? What do you have planned for Super Dakota?
Well, we're developing a bit more like an aspect of our business that is the secondary market, things that we've been doing like quietly for a while now, and that I think now we have the maturity and also the will to do. I'm personally like I'm I'm an art nerd, you know, I love art history. So like researching has always been something that I'm passionate about. And like, you know, researching secondary market and historical work is like something that I've been doing for a long time for clients, but more on the private side. Today we're like slowly building that up to more like to a larger visibility. That's one of our projects. And, you know, I guess like everybody, trying to adapt and adjust to the current crisis, trying to figure out also new models, because I'm a firm believer that I think the art market as we know it today, with like the actors and like the prominent figures, might not be the same within the next few years. And I don't believe that. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't believe that we'll see all these art fairs that currently exist still in play in the next few years. Same for a lot of galleries and same for a lot of events. I think there's a fatigue and the market has been overachieving for a while. And there's like, you know, it regulates itself at some point. So that's a big challenge.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense as well, kind of broadening your scope. And how about for you, Sebastian, as well?
Well, we're very much looking forward to the Amsterdam Art Week, which is now happening in 2 weeks. And it's actually quite a good example of you know the strength of Amsterdam, which I explained earlier, that we have an artist coming from Peru who came here for the Rijksacademy, and after 2 years of being on that institute, made a couple of shows with us. We're doing a show now, which is going to be his fourth exhibition with the gallery. I'm very excited about that exhibition during the Amsterdam Art Week, because we'll have a lot of new visitors to show his work to. But also it's leading up to our presentation at Art Basel with the same artist. We're actually doing 2 presentations at Basel, so both with Arturo and by chance his partner, Claudia Martinez Garay, also from Peru, who are showing at Unlimited. So yeah, it's really, really fun to be working on that together with these artists, and to have all these different events with them at the same time. So yeah, it's going to be a busy summer, but really looking forward to that.
Good busy. Great, fantastic. And then yourself, Martina, of course, we've got Amsterdam Art Week, and yeah, if you'd like to speak to more to that. So.
Yeah, of course. Oh, it's already happening, not even in 2 weeks. So we start on the 20th of May. We have been growing from a weekend to a week and expanding also this year now even to 6 days instead of 5, which is very lovely because there's a lot to see. I think it is the biggest program since we were founded in 2011. And it was not very intentional, but everybody was so excited. So also all our galleries, almost everyone is hosting an artist talk or performance or book launch. Also, some of the galleries have been existing now already for 40 years or 25 years. So they're also celebrating. So that's lovely to see. And I'm really looking forward to all the exhibitions because we have some great shows happening during the Amsterdam Art Week. I'm really looking forward to. Of course, I will be trying to sort of go over town and go over the almost 70 or 70 plus different locations. Of course, not everybody can visit as many as that, but I think you'll definitely have to accept that you have FOMO during the Amsterdam Art Week. But I'm really looking forward to the city coming alive again. Everybody's meeting up. And I would be very happy if we achieve more visitors than last year, of course, because since we have been growing for the past 3 years with 62% of in visitor numbers, that is really a lot. And last year we had 80% of our visitors visiting new locations. So I think that is also, of course, a big achievement that we want to invite people to visit locations they haven't been in before. So of course, we're still really trying to make sure that these numbers are growing. But also that's yeah, it's a good experience for everyone to meet new, different art lovers, but of course also meet new artists, visit new art locations, and see what Amsterdam has to offer. And that new collaborations are going to start. So I think, very much looking forward to that. And then also before that, first the Stockholm Art Week, and right after us is the Antwerp Art Weekend. And then Zurich is also still happening before summertime, and the London Gallery Weekend. So it's still quite a full agenda. And then Basel, and then everybody can go on a summer holiday.
Well deserved one after all of those as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, a huge thank you to all the guest speakers for sharing their insights today. We really appreciate you taking the time with us. I have to pinch myself how lucky I am that part of my job is to get to speak to fantastic people like yourself. So thank you so much for the time and effort you put in. We hope to all those listening, today's conversation has helped create a dialogue about the current art scene in the region and encourage many to engage with the vibrant events and activities that are planned if you're not already doing so. I myself will be travelling over to Amsterdam Art Week, and I'll be there from Wednesday 21st of May until Sunday 25th of May. So if you'd like to reach out to meet, please do. And yeah, you can get in touch via hello@artlogic.net. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you all to the next episode in our In Conversation series. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.